right, welcome to the GALSNGEAR Tequity Hub. Today, we are talking about how to become a beta tester and why it can help your career. And we have two fabulous guests who can really delve into that with us. One reason we are featuring this topic on the Hub is that we're launching a beta testing program with several hardware and software manufacturers. Because, fun fact, only 23% of beta testers are women, and we want to change that. So, as with any inequity that we see in tech at GALSNGEAR, we want to change that and create Tequity in beta testing. So, let me introduce the folks who are with us today. Rebekah Wilson is joining us from Madrid. Thank you, Rebekah. She is the technical co-founder and CEO of Source Elements, who co-created the entire suite of Source Elements software. She's got a degree in music composition, which makes her a special friend of mine since I'm a musician. So I think that's so fantastic. And she has a lifelong love of tech. And so she focused her career as a composer on electronic music and research and software development. And so she both has two jobs, both as the technical and business operations person for Source Elements, and is instrumental in building their global company. And they provide a lot of fabulous software that we're going to get a sneak peek into to media professionals. So welcome, Rebekah. Thanks for joining us all the way from Madrid. And joining us from an entirely different climate, but also starting with the letter M, Minnesota, Alexis van Hurkman is joining us. It's so great to have you, Alexis. Alexis is a hard person to describe. He is a writer, he is a director, he's a colorist. In 2019, he made a little 10-minute film for the city of Shenzhen, China, which is fantastic. He's done a lot of work in China, actually. He did an award-winning dramatic short that he directed called Carry My Heart to the Yellow River, which was shot in Gansu and Sichuan and Guangdong provinces in China. He is the director of the award-winning science fiction short, The Place Where You Live, the narrative feature 4 Weeks, 4 Hours. He's worked as a freelance editor and compositing artist, contributing effects and color correction to a huge number of projects. If you are a post-production nerd like me, then you probably know he's the author of dozens of books, such as Final Cut Pro X Advanced, or Final Cut Pro 10, I should say, Advanced Editing, and Autodesk Smoke Essentials, among many others. And he's contributed to the development of DaVinci Resolve versions 9 through 17. And he's been a professor teaching in Shenzhen and at Columbia University. So we're so happy he's here because he's now the lead workflow architect and product manager at Frame.io, which we know is an Adobe company. So thank you for joining
Actually,
us.
I'll correct you because that's behind the times.
Okay, sorry. What's the new title?
Well, I'm now what is my title? Senior product manager for the working with the Premiere Pro team at Adobe.
Fantastic, so, even better.
So I jumped. I haven't updated LinkedIn yet because I've been too busy on the new secret project.
Well, we're always happy to have someone who's working on secret projects, and that is just fantastic. So thank you for joining us. So let me start with you, Alexis. For those of us who are not really on the inside of software development, what exactly is beta testing and how is that different from alpha testing, if there is such a thing?
Well, as you and I discussed when we talked about this, the definition of beta kind of depends on what company you're talking to and who you're talking to. And I think that's a tragedy because the traditional definition of beta, as I have known it, going back to my time at Apple and SGI before that, was always that beta was when you had all of the features that you were planning on shipping in the app, and you're pretty sure they all work the way they're supposed to, but you need people to bang on it in real world scenarios before you feel comfortable shipping it for money. That's always been my definition of beta. But as SaaS companies have sort of started doing more and more of the software development, they have these weird fungible definitions of beta that shift with the sands a little bit. I'm not sure I'm down with that. certainly the software industry has experienced the same thing that the post industry has experienced, where, hey, I don't ever have to lock my edit because it's all so easy to change. We can request changes up until the day before we hand over the deliverables, right? Surely that's
is my
fine.
world. This is my world.
Yeah, well, that's becoming true in software as well, where you've got companies that have decided on, we're going to be date driven about this release for various reasons. And so, we'll call it beta, even though not everything is quite in yet. And during beta, we'll just keep adding some things until we decide that it's too dangerous, even for us, because we're releasing in 2 days. So yeah, like even the most old school definitions of beta have kind of shifted to that. But bottom line, beta is where you're trying to get real people to use it for real things. That's the best definition of beta I can give right now.
Great. So Rebekah, as someone who's developing your own software, how important is it to have beta testers using it in the real world?
Well, as we just saw, I'm currently beta testing something right now, which later on I'd like to show you. And you can see, even me as the person one of the people who knows it the best, there are buttons and switches that we forget to turn on. So, we don't want to ship to the wide world with these things. And what Alex was saying, exactly, we will now, the idea of a soft release is very common. So you would say, here's a product, it's tested, but, try it out, see what you think. And we're kind of soft releasing a beta these days, so much more as software developers, rather than saying it's ready to go. It's, it's rock solid, here you go and buy it. So even us, if we set a date saying, say next December 14th, I'm shipping, probably it's going to be shipping a beta and just letting people try it. And I'm not going to offer it for sale, but we need to get it on the market because we need to be competitive. And one of the important things that I think is happening now is that we have a concept of delta testing. So this is that continuous testing where you will go through a cycle. So you have alpha testing, which is internal to the company. Nobody outside the company should see an alpha. It should be completely locked down in private. Apple is a great example of that. You will never see an alpha or know anything about it. And then the beta will go through internal QA, which is, and then external QA, which is what everyone here is going to be interested in. And they will go through a continuous process. So the beta might be the first release of a new product, but then you're going to have delta releases, which is going on and on. You might get an email every 2 to 4 weeks saying, hey, here's an update, try it out. Here's an update, try it out, until you don't want to be a part of that anymore. So it's really great for software manufacturers to have this continuous testing flow.
Right. Well, and one thing that I think, Alexis, you have spoken about and written about is sort of what are the ways that it would be beneficial to you, not just beneficial to the software company, obviously, to have people trying to break things, but why is it beneficial to you to be a beta tester? What's the benefit to the person spending a little bit of time kind of trying to break stuff and keep track of that?
Well, as we mentioned, just about every beta testing program I've seen from any company, large and small, is unpaid. It's generally a volunteer thing. And there's no real reason for it other than, you're pretty sure that people aren't going to be spending days on it, right? Nor do you want them to. They're going to use it until they feel comfortable with it. If they find a problem, they'll let you know. But the other thing is there's kind of a, you don't want an awkward financial inducement for people to only say nice things about your product, right? You want people who are going to beat the hell out of your product and really find, hopefully, the annoyances so no one else will. And it also kind of goes hand in hand with the sort of ongoing feedback that a lot of vocal users of software try to have, right? Everyone who posts to a forum is hoping to exert influence. And, they're not thinking they're getting paid for this. They're just doing it because they want a new feature, or they want something to suck less, or they want something to stop breaking. And so the sort of natural continuation of that is when you find people who really do seem to have a talent for unearthing the weirdnesses, and who are able to articulate that in an actionable way. And that's quite possibly the most important thing. Is it's not enough to just say, hey, this new feature sucks, you should fix it.
Right.
And that directly benefits you, because now you have those things in your life to not have to worry about.
Right. So what about you, Rebekah? What are you looking for in a beta tester? I know you've got your software focuses on audio, and we're going to get a little demo of that after we wrap up this discussion. So what is something you're looking for in a beta tester? Give just some top tips.
Sure. Well, one thing that's changed here at our company too, we're not just audio anymore, we do video as well. So that's great. It's opening up the kind of testers we need. One thing is know your DAW or your NLE really well. If we don't feel that you know your tools, it's really hard for us to trust what you're telling us. Sometimes we'll get a report from somebody who's just like, when I click here, it doesn't work. And we can tell from the report, it's like, we don't trust your tools well enough to, is it a bug, or is it, what we would call error between chair and keyboard. So that's hugely important. And also the attention to detail is critical. It's not easy to be a beta tester. It's not just like walk in, click some buttons and then find some bugs. You can be lucky once and get a good report, but we're looking to work with people who, as Alexis says, is consistent, to that consistent attention to those details. And one of the things that is important, most beta testers will also either get free software or very good discounted software. So that's another cookie.
Right, exactly. And you get to be the first to use it. And I think that in our economy right now, where so many people are freelancers, that's really important. I love working with an editor who already got the advanced look at Premiere, or already got the advanced look at some kind of features, or when I work with Cheryl Ottenritter and she's already gotten a chance to test out something in the sound mix studio, and she's already run her own tests on how it's going to work in their workflow. That's a big advantage to me to hire those people. And so I think it's also just putting yourself out there as somebody who's sort of on the leading edge. And even with hardware, we're talking a lot about software because obviously our industry has moved very much into the software space, but it also works for hardware, camera gear, different kinds of camera mounts and all of that stuff. I mean, it's great if somebody's already kind of run through all that, and I know that they're really competent with that new equipment, rather than somebody who's got to sit there and kind of finagle it and figure out how to use it. So I think those are really good benefits as well.
There's one other thing I would add, and that is you have a real ability to alter the usability of the feature. Like, just because the feature is stable enough to test doesn't mean if 5 people identify that, hey, you have these buttons in completely the opposite way that any user would want them, that doesn't mean that can't get rearranged if they get feedback from people who are serious. So you can have an impact on the UI and the usability of the tool, and help make it a better tool for everybody.
That's a great point. And also, I think just sort of being sort of a global citizen of our industry is sort of part of what you're talking about. I know I've been working on the development of a photography and video access software called Mylio, and it's been really interesting to watch the group of testers as they sort of experiment with this tool. And it's really caused the developers to come up with some new ideas that they might not have had, because those people are using it in ways that they might not even have imagined. They probably had an original sort of stack of of areas that it was going to be implemented in that were fairly straightforward. And now it's being used in other ways. And I think it's going to end up coming into our side of the industry fairly quickly because of the AI tools that are really cool for findability of metadata and whatnot in organization. So it's really exciting to be part of that in the industry and to be part of participating and kind of changing the way a tool even unfolds. Any other things to avoid if you're being asked to beta test something?
I mean, not really. Just understand that people who work at software companies are a bunch of humans, and they're doing their best with the available information that they have. And if a company comes out with something that you think sucks, yelling at the void is not helpful.
And yelling at the humans, right?
One other thing that, I'm sure most of you won't have this, but you do get some personalities that can be a little, they would say in Spanish, pesado, a little weighty. I don't know how to translate that word into English right now. But there's also, you can give too much information, but there's a delicate dance there when we can say, thank you for your information. We're taking it into account. We can't do this big long list of features you've done, but thank you so much for your attention. We do still love you, even if you do that. We just can't reply to everything.
Right.
I'll say there's a real difference between asking for a new feature and reporting a current issue. Reporting a current issue is a lot more straightforward. And like I say, I think the secret weapon is if you've got screen capture software, just make a movie, wing it in, you're done. You don't have to write anything up. That covers so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you can reproduce it, do it twice. Now you've got my attention.
Totally. But if you're asking for a new feature, the one piece of advice I would give is try to think about how the thing you think you want could be useful to a lot of different people in more situations than the one situation you're in. Because I've seen so many feature requests from one person who has a really weird workflow. And yes, this feature would be amazing for their weird workflow, but I don't know anyone else who does that thing in that way.
Right.
So I'm never going to pick that feature because it's too idiosyncratic. However, if that person thought through their workflow and was like, hey, if I could open it up to more people by doing it in a different way, now that becomes a more interesting feature request.
We have some good questions here. One person is asking, how can you find out opportunities for beta testing, especially outside of the software that we might already be familiar with?
That's a tough one because...
Or is it better to focus on like stuff that you do know and kind of focus on those companies?
I'll talk from the big company perspective, and then I'll pass the mic. From all of the larger companies that I'm used to working with, they find you by and large, and they find you in a multitude of ways, many of them social. So I would say, if you're really interested in getting involved, having some kind of an appearance on that company's or that application's forums will help you. But the best thing you can do is most companies have some kind of representation at trade shows. That's the one time during the year where you can actually talk to the engineers, talk to the people themselves who show up, and they're there specifically to make relationships with users.
Yep.
For a variety of ways. And that is most of the time I've seen.
We have some good questions here. One person is asking, how can you find out opportunities for beta testing, especially outside of the software that we might already be familiar with?
That's a tough one because...
Or is it better to focus on like stuff that you do know and kind of focus on those companies?
I'll talk from the big company perspective, and then I'll pass the mic. From all of the larger companies that I'm used to working with, they find you by and large, and they find you in a multitude of ways, many of them social. So I would say, if you're really interested in getting involved, having some kind of an appearance on that company's or that application's forums will help you. But the best thing you can do is, most companies have some kind of representation at trade shows. That's the one time during the year where you can actually talk to the engineers, talk to the people themselves who show up, and they're there specifically to make relationships with users.
Yep.
For a variety of ways. And that is, most of the time I've seen people get involved in a private beta program, it's through a trade show and talking to one of the team, and they go, oh wow, you really want to put some time into this? Great, let me take your name and we'll put you on the list. Here's the thing though, if you do that, you got to follow through. If it happens, you get a big job comes in at the time they need beta testing and you can't participate, you're probably going to fall off the list. And that's,
right,
kind of the way it is.
Right.
So I'll
Rebekah,
pass the mic.
any thoughts?
So we're a little bit different because we're a small company and we don't have that pool of like getting, those high-end beta testers. We love also testers of all levels. People who've only even just found the software were like, it's great to get that input of like, what is it like as a completely new user? I know the software 20 years. I would be a terrible, new tester for this. So we have always an open call, and I'll put a link on the chat too. Please sign up. We just love people to sign up. And then we go through the list. You'll answer a few questions and we'll pick up whoever that we need. I also want to mention, you couldn't hear me before because I'm beta testing a new software and I accidentally put the slider down and the mute button didn't turn orange. So I just found a bug.
Excellent.
Yeah. You got to use it.
Exactly. Well, and someone is asking, how do you reach out to a company? And so if you're not at trade shows, one reason we're starting this program is because you can reach out to Gals and Gear and say, I'm interested in beta testing. These are my skill sets. I'm an editor, I'm a color grader, I'm a, audio mixer, or I'm a producer who uses these tools. And we will potentially find you a match. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do, is act like a matchmaker, because there are a lot of opportunities that are missed because people are busy or they can't get to trade shows. I could get into a whole long thing about why sometimes women don't feel all that welcome at some of our techie trade shows. So, which is why Gals and Gear was founded. So we're trying to step into that breach a little bit and serve as a go-between, because we have relationships with many of the large companies. And so we want to help them find female beta testers or people who identify as women to be beta testers, so we can raise that percentage just a little bit. So any last suggestions before we go to Rebekah's demo? Obviously, Alexis, you've worked with a lot of the big companies. Any other suggestions you have?
No, I mean, the funny thing is with the big companies, it's just as social as with any production, right? Like the big companies have marketing people. The marketing people go to parties, they go to events, they go to users groups.
Mm-hmm.
And
users groups
so for
great.
example, Kylie Pena is part of the marketing team for the video apps at Adobe, and she goes to all kinds of events. So if you see Kylie anywhere, say hi, and it's as simple as that. So it's not hard, it's just random. But again, people who distinguish themselves on the forums as being exceptionally articulate or exceptionally helpful, or who find the weird bugs that no one else seems to find, those people get noticed. And I guess that's my big thing. And I'm going to paste a link to a blog article I wrote about this.
Please. That would be great.
People think the forums don't get read, or people think that when you click that submit feedback link, it doesn't get read. And so some people take that as license to be incendiary. And, basically what I'm saying is those things do get read. They just don't let anybody know they get read because all this stuff is a secret, right? It's all
Right.
secret projects. They're never going to reach out and say, oh, hey, you happen to mention the thing we're working on right now, and we're going
Right.
to talk about it.
Right.
So just be kind, right? And
That is
those
very good.
things get read and have more impact because it's also a numbers game. And I'll pass the mic on this as well. Like, one person has a brilliant idea that might be the greatest feature, but there's a to-do list of 500 other things that they agreed to do before that feature comes along. But if 100 other people ask for the same sort of thing, that might climb up the list. Right. So that's the other thing.
Marcy, in answer to your question about requirements to look for, that's really what we've been talking about. So just to sum up, some of the requirements would be that you're detail-oriented, that you're willing to try something more than once, that you're willing to screen record when something breaks, that you're a participant in forums that discuss things, whether it's Reddit's. I mean, there's tons and tons of post-production forums if you were interested in testing editing software, for example, or color grading software. I mean, there's a million forums where people discuss those. And I've even seen, live discussions on Twitter. Scott Simmons is probably one of the great editors who constantly comments on, if there's some feature he doesn't love about something or some really cool software that he does love, then he'll post a kind of a Twitter string with screen caps and he'll just do it publicly. But politely, and tag those companies. So those are some of the requirements. And as I said earlier, we're trying to pair up people who are interested. So if you are interested, make sure you reach out to us at galsngear@gmail.com and say, put beta tester in the reline. And that will get to me, and I'll be sure that you're included in our group and say, what area you're most interested in. Obviously, cameras or editing or, software for live events, etc. So I want to throw this over to Rebekah to do a little bit of a demo, if that's okay, Alexis. I think we can wrap on this and share this. She's already shared with us this fabulous offer to let Gals and Gear work with this software for free for the next 90 days. So I put that up on the screen, and you can just email her with the code GALSNGEAR 2023, and she will get you set up. So Rebekah, maybe this is a good time to turn it over to you and tell us what is Source Nexus Suite and why would it be such a great collaboration tool?
Absolutely, with pleasure. So if I can share my screen here, you can see we now have someone joining us from Colombia. Hola Maria Camila, ¿cómo estás? How are you doing?
Hola a todos. Hello everyone. I'm doing great. I hope you are too.
So what I was, when you didn't hear me before, we have this new software that is very new actually, and it's in beta at the moment. I had the volume down.
Okay, now it's down again.
See, exactly, because the mute button wasn't on. We're visual people, so often yes. We need to find this. So I'll move that away. And so last week, or actually today is one of the big release days. We just sent out press releases for this. And so Marie Camila is able to...
Can you back up and just explain what the purpose of the software is?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're able to exchange high quality audio just through a browser. And I'm going to record it straight into Pro Tools. I could record it into Adobe Premiere, Final Cut Pro, any DAW, NLE. And we have this built-in tool here where you can see when I'm talking, it's going into Maria Camila's input. And then also if I hit the play button, you're going to hear this as well because I routed it. And you can see she's also getting the music, and I can play anything back on my tracks. I can have as many layers as I want. She's going to hear it, and even better, if I want to, I've got a talkback switch here, so I can all manage that while I'm just focused on Pro Tools or Adobe Premiere. I can just stay in that environment and work. I don't have to switch back. I don't have to worry about where my audio is. I've got meters. I can see visually that I'm sending audio. All of these things that as media people are really important to us. We thought a lot about how do I as a creative media also need my tools, my remote collaboration tools to reflect that I work with media, you know. What are my audio levels?
And I assume that the latency is really low, so it's basically in sync, so you could do something together collaboratively.
Exactly. So that's what I've lined up here. I've got a lovely video that I like to work with, and so I'm just going to play back. And Rebekah, can you just tell me what you're seeing? I've got some 3 beeps here first.
Yep. And I am seeing a cute pig. Yeah, happy animals. A baby cat, a goose, family of elephants.
So, so that's the, you know, we can have like a run through here, but I've already sent this to her and we've prepared a narrative, so I can just now hit this record button and then Marie Camilla. By the way, Marie Camilla, is that audio too high for you? I worry that when you speak, maybe the volume of the music's a bit gonna mess with your voice, or
let's check.
Down?
Okay.
Okay, so I just need to do that. Let's just turn it down like 8,
a little bit,
around 8 dB here. Let's see how that is. All right, and I'm going to roll, and let's hear what you've got to say.
Start your day with a smile as we dive into the world of happy animals. Witness the pure joy of nature's most charming creatures as they go about their everyday routines. Isn't it amazing how even the simplest moments can bring happiness? From playful puppies to graceful butterflies, soaring birds to gentle giants, and so much more. Happy Animals is a celebration of the everyday magic that fills our lives. So press play and immerse yourself in the joy of happy animals. Sometimes all it takes is a little furry friend to brighten your day.
Thank you. God, that was so lovely. Let me play that back to you. That's something you're going to want to hear. So I'm just going to put that on my playback track, and you can tell me what you think. I'll just play back the first few seconds. That sync was pretty good, so great. I'm happy with that. Levels are great. I got everything I needed, and I can go and print. So this is what we do. We have a lot of tools here for routing, more routing. We have this video broadcaster here that can do up to 4K if you want. I could also screen share that video if I wanted directly. If I go to here, so got built-in playback as well. I'm probably playing it back 5 times right now for me, Camilla, but and you can't see on Zoom, but this is frame accurate, really good video, and it's also stupidly cheap. For some reason we thought let's make it like $11.95 a month, but all of you get that for free for 3 months, because I want everyone here to please be a beta tester or a delta tester now it's released. So
right. Okay. So one of the questions that I have for the audience is just now that you've heard a little bit about beta testing, how many of you are interested in potentially testing something? It doesn't have to necessarily be the software that Rebekah is demonstrating, but would you be interested in beta testing something, either something that Adobe is working on or something that you're interested in? And Rebekah's put her sign up in the chat as well. Is anybody interested now that they've seen this? And Carla, I hope you're interested in having us beta test something for Digital Anarchy, one of our favorite software plugin companies.
Yes, we just finished a beta testing program with Data Storyteller. It's very interesting. You get all sorts of things. And I think, you know, we are a very small company, but so it becomes very personal. And one of the things that I've been focused on, it's getting feedback for usability, like Alexis mentioned. We are a very engineering-oriented company. I always try to bring the user, element to it, because when the engineering team gets into it, I'm like, I pull you guys back just for a second.
Right.
It makes sense for QA, it makes sense for you guys, but sometimes it makes a big difference to have that feedback. And we have all sorts of beta testers. We have the very technical ones, the influencers who test more of the visual effects plugins, especially, Flicker Free, Beauty Box. But the new tool, for example, that we have can be used in so many ways. It's a graphic, so you can use data sets to create maps, world maps, US maps, and then bar line and scatter charts. That the types of charts will be expanded, but it was very interesting to see the many different scenarios. People were like more in marketing using those graphics, and the usability, the way they navigate the software is completely different. So we do get a wide range of, people that we need to get feedback from.
So Shirley is asking, can you get paid to be a beta tester or just volunteer? That's a good question. Alexis, you want to take that?
Oh, I got to take it. I'm the big company guy. So I have yet to see a beta testing program be paid, for the reasons I mentioned before. Like they emerged historically as an outgrowth of, oh, hey, we released an application and a bunch of people complained about stuff. So before we release the next one, we'll seed those people who complained last time and see if they have anything to complain about this time. So it was always kind of an unofficial thing. But then the other aspect of it is the minute you bring money into it, all of a sudden, are people going to give you the right feedback, or are they going to give you what you want to hear because they want to keep getting paid? It's complicated. That said, it's something that I'm kind of investigating to see if anyone else has, found a way to turn these programs into something more formal. I will say this. I have seen at various companies efforts to hire a team of expert users as like an in-house.
Right. I was going to say that you kind of can get hired as like almost like a consulting.
Yeah, that does happen. And then it's full-time, and the expectation is often that you bring a project in and you must do that entire project with the experimental software so that we can fully, take it through the process. And so those opportunities do exist, but it's funny, companies have this bright idea, hey, let's have an in-house team, and then they do it for a while, and then usually after about a year, they're like, okay, that's interesting. Something happened to the economy and our stock price went down, and we're letting all of you go because we don't need it that badly. Right. And then another, couple years pass, and hey, we had this bright idea, let's have an in-house team. So that I see this as a very cyclical thing. I wish it was more consistent and more formalized, because I think a lot of good can come from those teams, and it's a great way to get into tech. And that's the last thing I'll say is there is a path to getting a job at a company that makes software if you want to get involved with that. And this can be part of that continuum. It was for me. Like my first job in tech was the result of talking to a product manager at a party who was friends with an audio editor that I knew. And when he found out I was a Premiere Pro user back in the 90s, I guess it was just Premiere then, he was like, hey, we're working on this thing. Would you be interested in consulting? And I, a freelancer, was like, yes, I am always interested in paid consulting. And that opened the door to my involvement in the industry. And that was basically glorified in-house product analysis. So
yeah, I think I
have a question.
That's true. And I think also, go ahead. Did somebody have a question?
You said earlier that having a presence on the forums and that kind of thing is really helpful for becoming a beta tester. But what about someone who, like me, doesn't have a big following, but I keep a pulse on it? How do you transition to being that person that would get selected to be a beta tester without having like necessarily influence?
Well, the forum thing is very random. Because, in that respect, that people are monitoring the forums, but you don't know when someone's going to say, this person is remarkably insightful, maybe we should reach out to them. It's totally random. So you're just kind of setting yourself up to be a name people recognize whenever the next step happens, whether it's you connecting to marketing or you connecting to someone at a trade show or running into someone randomly at a Hollywood party, or whatever, right? It's all random socializing. I hate to say, because that's the problem with the media industry, is it's all random socializing, and that is
So
impossible.
networking.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I think
all
it's like
networking.
everything. It's networking, it's building your community, your network, building your name recognition. It's sort of part of thought leadership if you're a tech nerd. You know, that's, you know, thought leadership takes a lot of different paths. And I think if you're kind of a tech nerd and you're interested in trying things and trying to break them in a polite, friendly sort of way,
And public way, right?
and a little bit publicly, then that's sort of one of your things. I noticed that Carla said that she got her job by beta testing transcriptive. So that's how she got into digital anarchy. I know that Kylie Pena, who's
cool.
one of our community members and a big GALSNGEAR supporter, you know, used to be at Netflix. She was an editor before that. She ran a lot of post-production workflow, gave a lot of feedback on Adobe products, and now she's on the product side at Adobe, probably because, you know, she had that reputation as somebody who was, you know, a tech nerd in the best possible way, and sort of cared enough about the industry to want to make things better. I think that's part of it too, right? You have to be, you can't just be somebody who likes to break things. You have like to break them to make them better. In terms of the payment thing, I think one of my goals for GALSNGEAR is to get some of our sponsors to help fund some of the beta testers who might be spending more time than just a day or a few hours testing something, you know, where it really takes a little bit more time and effort, and to be sure that they are getting paid something for their time. I think one of the reasons fewer women are beta testing is probably, you know, I don't want to be like the economist here because that's not my background, but I'm going to guess that the wage gap has a little bit of something to do with it being almost precisely the same difference with the beta testing gap, that, you know, if you can't afford that time to invest because you're getting paid a little bit less, then that is also a problem. So, or you're being asked to do a lot of other things outside of your job. So I think that's an area where we're hoping we can maybe bridge that gap a little bit and sort of bring some sponsorship money to bear, even if it's not necessarily the company that's doing the beta testing, if that makes sense. Because I know your point, Alexis, is well taken about being paid by that company. But I think it just depends how detailed the work is too.
I will add, though, that I wouldn't want anyone to walk away from this thinking that, oh, to be an effective beta tester, I have to be spending half of every day
Right.
pounding on the app. Like, honestly, quality trumps quantity any day of the week. If you find something interesting inside of a half an hour and you can record a screen capture of it happening and send it in, we will love you.
Right.
And you don't have to do any more than that.
In addition, not finding a bug can be important. We need that too, to say, hey, it's all been working today.
Right. Right. It's nice to give good feedback, positive feedback. Yeah. And I think, you know, the other piece of this is just if you can think of a project that will be relevant to. So if there's something new that's coming out and you've got a project, it'd be like, wow, you know, when Beauty Box first came out, I could think of like a million projects that I needed it for immediately. So if you can apply it to something in the real world, like that's the best possible use case, right? It's because you are actually trying to use it for an outcome other than testing software. And that's really what they want, is to actually have it used in the real world, in the wild, so to speak, to see how it functions. You know, did it take too much time to get to that result? Did I have to push too many buttons? Did I lose my way in the drop-down menus? Did I lose some previous iteration that I thought was auto-saved? Whatever the thing is. So anyway, I hope that a lot of women will start beta testing. We're going to start small, but build up. And we have so many great companies that are affiliated with us as sponsors and supporters of GALSNGEAR, and they have a lot of gear. So we're hoping that that we can bring some women to the table to be part of the beta testing community. So
You just noticed
Unibox AI is coming even. We are working on it. So we're gonna have like beta testing program for that probably.
all right, well, we'll be talking, Carla. Maybe we can launch something by NAB in April, not NAB New York. But I hope I will see any of you who are in New York at NAB Show New York at our happy hour. I also have, for anybody who might be going and want to take a workshop, a free workshop, I have a free code that's worth like $400 for, you could apply to one of the post-production workshops or one of the cinematography workshops that are happening that start from Tuesday through the Thursday of the show, that are co-located with the show at the Javits Center. So if you're thinking about going and you'd love to get some educational content while you're there, I have a code to give away that'll be worth something for you. So send me a note on galsngear@gmail.com as to why you should be the winner of that. And let's make sure that we also put up Rebekah's promo one more time. I think we sent it out in our newsletter as well for our members. So if you're interested in testing this real-time collaboration, it would be great, especially anybody who might have to do collabs over long distances where they're having issues with latency, right?
Yeah.
This would be a good testing model. So thank you for joining us for this episode of Tequity Tuesday. Please join us again. We'll be back in, let's see, when will we be back? We will be back in November on the 21st for public speaking for media professionals, why it's important, even if you're an introvert, which I know a lot of you are. So I hope many of you will join us for that. Thanks again for joining us.